Hello, my name's Scott Williams. I'm an exercise physiologist, and I would like to tell you a little bit about my golf tracker, which was designed based on the experiences of many sports scientists and service providers working in high-level golf, culminating with my honours thesis and subsequent European Journal of Sports Science article that's been recently accepted. So it's currently being utilised for a follow-up project as part of my PhD, where I'm following 150 competitive golfers of all standards tracked over a 6-month period to help determine the relationship between objective physical measures and golf performance. So we expect that my golf tracker will continue to be used by golfers, providing much needed sports science support to them and their service providers as they're traveling around and competing. So building on the general concepts posited by Peter Drucker, the management scientist, when he said, if you can measure it, you can manage it. And his other great quote, I think, is the best way to predict the future is to create it. So the benefits of monitoring. Initially, there is a basic need to simply follow up a training plan with a quantifiable training diary so that both player and relevant coach knows if the work that was set was actually done or not. The second main benefit is instant web-based communication with the team and the player, which is especially important if the traveling golfer has a service provider or team of service providers helping them remotely, which is often the case. We've also found with the recently published article in my 2014 honours study that simply tracking motivated golfers to do more and to take a more thorough approach to their development. And finally, like any sporting athlete, there's a balance to be struck between fitness and fatigue. So what is the optimal performance state for the player and how do they get into that state? What is their current readiness to train or compete? What is their current wellness? And what may lead to injury for an individual so that they can work around it and prevent it happening in the first place. So with some simple daily inputs accessible to any smart device or laptop that the player may be using, we can quickly start to determine some of these important issues for the player. So importantly, in designing my golf tracker, we've managed to stick to the feasible 5-minute limit. And in this 5 minutes, the player can enter all of their wellness, training activities, recovery activities, and periodic fitness testing, which will be inputted by either themselves or by their service provider. So we can use primarily my golf tracker to guide the training of the player. So at the top of each page, the player or coach can easily view the golfer's readiness to train or compete based on the subjective wellness or training load that the player is experiencing. And these traffic lights will determine if the player is ready to go or continue full training or whether they need to take some other consideration. So some of the important aspects from the literature or sport field that's typically used to monitor players in the field is information such as sleep, and we can track the quality and the quantity of the sleep that the golfer's experiencing against their long-term average. We can also use my golf tracker to assist the player to train in the sweet spot. So based on the work of training load academics such as Gabbett and Williams, the recently popularized real-time training load analysis such as exponentially weighted moving averages have been applied to the acute to chronic ratios here, and we've got them charted here, and these inform the notifications for the traffic lights as you saw in the previous slide. So the blue line here is the acute, so the 7-day moving average, and the road here is what the athlete needs to try and stay on. So the middle of the road being the 28-day average, and the top here being 50% above and 50% below that chronic average. So yeah, it'll fire off a red warning if these sides of the roads are breached, or if it's 30% above or below the chronic average, then that will trigger an amber alert. The wellness notifications are underpinned by wellness Z scores based on the work of McGuigan and others in the area, and we've used a 1.5 standard deviation for the amber caution and a 2.5 standard deviation away from the mean for the player for the red warning. And the subcategories you can see down here, we've picked fatigue, muscle soreness, pain and stiffness, stress and illness for our golfers. An example of the red warning and the amber warnings are given here. So these are quite intuitive for players and very useful to coaches to see how their athlete is responding to the planned and unplanned stresses that the player is experiencing. By clicking on the traffic lights, the player or the coach can get an instant snapshot of which exact wellness category is the concern. So for convenience, we've also provided some basic generic advice for how a player might consider adapting their training plan when these warnings or cautions are displayed. So these can either be used in isolation or as a conversation starter with the golfer's service team. Similarly, by clicking on the low traffic light, further details given to either direct the player to alter their activities or to encourage further communication with the relevant service provider. So it's hoped that overall this inbuilt feedback will encourage gradualness and consistency in the golfer's overall training plan and or to adapt or seek help when needed. So training smarter in this way is expected to lead to improved performance and decreased injury or illness. Also built into My Golf Tracker is a series of 20 or so physical assessments from the published literature that are correlated in various ways with golf performance. The players can be mapped either against an ideal or displayed as a percentile rank against their own cohort based on gender, age or golf level. This essentially gives the player a quick and easy way to interpret a snapshot into where they need to improve to either increase performance or reduce the likelihood of injury. So the future of golf monitoring. Machine-based learning methods for individualized analysis of all of the relationships previously mentioned in this presentation. We'd also like to begin to map and analyze other key relationships. Greater integration with objective micro technologies as well is expected to be included in further iterations of My Golf Tracker. Some other benefits for the sport or for researchers looking into golf. Injury mapping, so mapping some of these key relationships that may inform various strategies for service provision into the sport from the grassroots development programs or life on tour. We'd also like to understand a lot more about the injury load relationship in golf and the travel and the wellness relationship, so the rigors of travel which are reasonably unique to the golfer. And we'd also like to look further into physical testing and the relationship with injury. Other areas of that will be investigated inspired by both the literature and other sports include comparing specific isometric joint strength with golf-specific pain indexes or rate of injury, or indeed biomechanics and performance. So mapping physical assessments against biomechanical outputs is now common in the field and may also give some vital clues to how we can better underpin skill acquisition with physical preparation. So looking at kinematic sequences here on the left and different postural alignments at phases of the swing is becoming quite common, but understanding the relationship with the other items that we're monitoring is something that we need to look at in the near future. We would like to map any training interventions against performance outputs, both in training or on the golf course, which are often captured with launch monitors, such as TrackMan. We'd also like to be able to track the time spent in training from various distances and then analyse how this is transferring to on-course performance using published statistical measurements such as strokes gained. This can then better guide coaching and be able to answer the question, is it a technical change that's required or simply a change in training focus? So all of this is leading to increased training economy, meaning greater return on the golf course for time invested in both physical training and golf practice. So for more information about the current PhD study, go to our study website, which is www.thegolfstudy.oceanfitness.com.au, or our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/thegolfstudy, or you can contact me by email on scott@oceanfitness.com.au. So I hope you enjoy my golf tracker. Thank you.